our next speaker is the wonderful Sandy Herrera, and I met Sandy in Bali nearly 3 years ago, and she is doing fantastic things in America with different schools around that area of core values and helping create happiness, helping people understand happiness and how to be happy in our lives. And so it's fantastic to be able to have her here today. Hi, Sandy.
Hi, Kathy. I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very, very welcome. It's my pleasure and privilege to have you here among us. Now, the first question that I'm asking absolutely everyone is, what do you see are the challenges in the education system?
Oh my goodness. Where do we start, right? There's so many challenges. And yet I want to preface this by saying there are also a lot of beautiful things that are happening in our system of education. You know, the innovation, not only during this time of transition to distance and hybrid and all of the things that we're experiencing now, but it's also that just the innovation that's been happening over the years. There's a lot of amazing educators doing incredible work right now. I think what's wrong with the system of education is that it wasn't built for today or tomorrow's era. And there's so many pieces and parts of it that are actually diminishing the inner genius in not only our students, but our educators.
I'm so glad you brought up about the wonderful educators, because you're absolutely right. There is so much innovation there. And I see so many people trying to work so hard to sort of tweak different areas of the education system. So it's great that you've acknowledged that. What else do you see the challenges?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges is that the current system of education and the way that things are done globally, and definitely here where I live in the US, is that the structure was not built for today's era, and it definitely wasn't built for tomorrow. It wasn't built for 22nd century learning either. And so when we look at the evolution and what needs to change, we need to start bringing the human back in, because in education, we're in the people business. We're not in the data business. We're not in the, structure business, and we're in the people business. This is about humans. And it's really about igniting the inner genius, not only in our children, but in our educators. And I think we miss the boat when we're looking at the system, because we're looking for the data to prove things. And data is very useful, but to connect as humans first. I think that's one of the biggest things that we're missing in education right now.
Yeah, because data doesn't ignite passion. Data doesn't ignite energy. What it does is it gives you information in order to be able to make decisions, but it doesn't, ignite that fire, that potential that is in both our educators and in our children. So yeah, really, really good point. So that brings me to my next question, which is, what do you wish that you had learned at school?
I wish that I had learned what my natural brain-wired strength was. I wish I had learned that my brain works this way, and so this is a path for me to actually accomplish the things I need to accomplish through my zone of genius, not trying to be all things to all people, but truly just celebrating who I am. Not learning that until I was 30 years old, I think created a lot of struggle and created a lot of unnecessary roller coasters in my life. And yet I learned a lot from them. I am where I am now. So I'm grateful for the lessons along the way. But I wish that I could have shortened that learning curve by truly just being celebrated for how my brain works and knowing that everyone learns different. Everyone thrives differently. Everyone processes information differently versus the one size fits all. Do it this way, sit down, keep your hands together, sit still, pay attention.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing from many different people talking, is that in school, when you have a narrow curriculum or narrow areas of focus, that we find those limitations on us because we haven't done particularly well in that, and do some more work in that particular area, do some more work in that. So it's this constant focus on what you're needing to do better, please do better, please see me, etc., rather than being able to go, okay, who are you and what do you want to grow, and what is your genius to bring to the world, if you like.
And it's so much really the more that I learn about neuroscience and positive psychology and the science of happiness is that all of that quote unquote programming as we're growing up is telling our unconscious mind that we're not enough, that we're not enough. And so then what do we do as adults? And a lot of the educators that I get to work with now, we break out the proverbial bat and go, not enough, not enough, not enough, not enough. Whether it's I'm not doing enough or I'm not capable enough, or it's all rooted in shame of what we're not doing instead of focusing on what does come natural to us and what we can do and what we get to be celebrated for in this life.
You're so right. So Sandy, tell us about what you're doing right now with the different groups that you're working with and what you're working towards.
I'm so grateful to be doing the work that I get to do in this life. And it is in part to some amazing mentors that I've had the good fortune of connecting with throughout my journey. And one of them, as you know, is Roger Hamilton, the founder of the Genius Group. And I met Roger about 15 years ago and learned about the wealth dynamics and talent dynamics assessment, and found out that I was a creator profile, and gave me the opportunity to really shine my light and be the unique, amazing genius that I am, and learn to celebrate that in others and really seek that out. And another one is the late Tony Hsieh, the former CEO of Zappos. And Tony and I met and became friends back in 2008. And so I had the good fortune of getting to know him personally and spending some wonderful times with him. And when he launched his book, Delivering Happiness, into a company to teach other companies how to use happiness as a business model, I reached out and said, hey, I love what you're doing. Happy to volunteer, whatever you need. And 3 months later, I was running internal culture and internal operations. And I got the fun title of Culture Ops Diva. And so we had a lot of good adventures at Delivering Happiness with all of the ways that we were trying to spread happiness in the world and transform corporate culture. And during that time, schools were reaching out and saying, we want to be happy like Zappos too. Can you help us implement some of the strategies from the book? And professors reaching out and saying, can you help write curriculum for the book? So I was volunteering my time based upon my passion for education that really started from a mommy fire in me from when my son had an unfortunate experience between one kindergarten and another at 5 and 6 years old, that really was because he didn't fit into a box. He wasn't celebrated, and it had everything to do with the culture of the school, nothing to do with academics. And so it started this fire like no child should ever have to feel that. And so when I got the opportunity to volunteer and work with schools when I was with Delivering Happiness, it was a natural fit for me to share what we were teaching companies and start making it relevant. And my initial path was thinking, oh, well, I can do this. This is for the kids. And realized through my work was I love working with educators. I love working with the adults and the staff at our schools. They are the most passionate, purpose-driven, amazing group of humans on the planet that are so underserved when it comes to the big picture strategies and things that work in corporations around the world to create positive, sustainable, comprehensive, happy workplaces. And so to have the opportunity to share that wisdom with them and to grow my work with Tony and Jen Lim, the CEO of Delivering Happiness, with their full blessing and support, they pushed me out of the nest and said, Sandy, you're passionate about this work, go build it. So I got to leave Delivering Happiness with their loving blessing in 2013, in January of 2013. And I started coaching schools to create positive workplaces. And I now am partners with Genius School Global and Roger Hamilton and Angie Steed. And we are running global programs to make a difference for children and creating a whole education revolution around child-centered personalized learning pathways. So both worlds, it's all about school and it's all about the adults and how we can create that ripple effect for kiddos.
Isn't it interesting how you said that it was your mum's heart that created this, that fostered that, because it's been exactly the same in my journey as well. I ended up pulling all of my children out of school for 2 years back when they were in primary school, and again running a child-centered curriculum because I saw the damage that was happening to my children, to their self-esteem, to their view of themselves. And so I took 2 years to sort of rebuild them as children, if you like, using very much a child-centered curriculum that I developed from what they were interested in, and watching them being able to grow and to be inspired and to retain that curiosity that so many children seem to lose when they're in school, or it's not so visible actually at school. It might be visible outside of school. So yeah, that was sort of the beginning of this. And yet again, it was something that my son said that has sparked this particular summit. And that was after my youngest son came out of school, and him standing in the kitchen saying 2 weeks into the pandemic, I feel like I've wasted 13 years of my life at school.
Yeah.
And that just raises so many questions.
It does.
How do we do this differently? Because so many people are tweaking, and how can we do education differently so that we end up with these children that are coming through school and coming out into adulthood at the other side, who they are, equipped for the world, rather than coming through and then going, okay, now what do I need to know and what do I need to do? Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. And so I'm grateful to be on this path. And as Andrew Steed said to me earlier, one of the co-founders of Genius School, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and super grateful to those mentors and those that have come before to pave the pathway for us to be able to do this right now, for us to be able to be communicating from across the world and be able to see each other, and for you to be able to put this summit together to revolutionize education. It wouldn't happen had we not been going through the blood, sweat, and tears all the way through. Not that we're done, we've still got more work to do, but it's going to take all of us together. And that's really the mission that I'm on, is to curate a community of 1 million conscious educators around the world, because we're going to be the ones who actually make the change. It's not going to be the systems or the governments. We as educators are going to be the ones to do it.
Great. Okay. So you've picked up a key point in there already, which is one of the things that you've done is you've found mentors and you've connected with them. They're mentors that are working in the area that you're interested in, passionate about. And that is something that every single person can do, isn't it? No matter what age they are, it's identify the people that they're going like, I want to learn from you. And so that's a really cool start, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so tell us about the science of happiness, which is one of the things that you've created as part of your journey.
It's been such a fascinating journey to study the science of happiness. There's so many thought leaders that have put together different pillars. And what I did is I took all of their work, including Tony Hsieh's work, and put it all together in an infographic and put it into what is more simple for me to process, and hopefully it helps others as well. It's one of the foundational pieces that I use when I'm assessing where a school is at, is I have the individual leadership teams take a look at these pillars, these 5 pillars, and rate themselves as individuals, and then rate the different departments or groups within their school on where they feel like they're at on a scale of 1 to 5. And it's an anecdotal, just, let's just gut check where we're at. But it really gives you an opportunity to look into, okay, well, what does happiness mean? And I'm not talking about the rock star style of happiness that you get like if you're at a concert. I'm talking about the sustainable well-being and joy. Talking about, what does it mean to be happy? Like, how do we do that? Because happiness sometimes can just be contentment. It doesn't have to be this big over the top thing. And so when we look at it through our individual lenses and we look at these 5 pillars, which I'll share my screen and share here in just a second, it just gives you a roadmap. it gives you the ability to look at, not from the perspective of, oh, I'm not where I want to be, but from, oh my gosh, I now have the information to go, okay, this is where I want to celebrate. I'm really doing this one really well. And this is where I actually want to make some improvements. And I always tell everyone, just pick one pillar, one action, and then create a habit around that one action in a way that serves you as a human. And same thing for your teams. If you're actually working with a team, pick one pillar and one action. And I like to have people look at it through the lenses, which one would you choose if you know it could be a domino effect for the others? And so if I could, Kathy, share my screen, if that's okay.
I'd love you to share your screen. Just before that, though, you've picked up another key point, and that's around people's perception of happiness, isn't it? Because, so many people are out there, be happy, right? And so many people think that means just, painting a smile on your face and being happy. But what you're talking about is this deep sense of contentment, isn't it? And it's not fake. It is sustainable. It's something, because our emotions can go up and down all of the time, but this is like, it's underneath there, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And that it gives you something to be able to draw back on.
Because life's going to happen. And life throws us wrenches and lessons and stuff, right? And when we think about, and one of the things that Tony always talked about was, if you think about the x-axis, right? And you have the timeline of your life, and then you have happiness here. So through the timeline of your life, I don't know about you, but my happiness hasn't gone like this, right? It's not a straight line. Mine's been kind of like this. I don't know what anyone else's is like, but when I think about my journey of life, and I don't anticipate that my future is going to be much different, other than it might smooth out a little bit as I know that it's a journey. And through that journey, when I do hit a dip, I feel my way through it and process and look at, okay, what's working, what's not, where am I in alignment with my values, where am I not? And I can tweak and pivot in order to then bring myself back up from a very conscious place. And that's really where we'll also chat about the levels of consciousness and how we actually navigate through that as individuals, really owning our value and taking our power back.
It's absolutely wonderful. So please, if you could share this tool around the 5 pillars to help people identify those areas, that would be great.
Absolutely. So this is, again, my version of the pillars of the science of happiness. This is a combination of several different thought leaders' work. This is not just my brain. This is about so many people that have spent so much time and effort into this. I just wanted to put it in a really simple way to process for us that don't want to do decades of research on the science of happiness. We just want to understand how to implement it for ourselves, right? So, a little selfish side of me, but I want to share it. So, when I look at these 5 pillars, do you need me to zoom in a little bit so it can be a little bit bigger?
A little bit bigger?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's actually make this a little bit bigger so that everyone can see. And I'll go through them as well. But when we think about these 5 pillars, purpose and meaning, positivity, connectedness, engagement, and sense of progress, there's the definitions below each one of really what goes into it and the components that it takes to really amplify that pillar, for lack of a better way of saying it. And it's not linear either. We're kind of messy as human beings, right? We have emotions, we have feelings, we have experiences, we have other people in our lives, we've got all the things, right? So when we look at these pillars, it's a matter of just taking a gut check. And whether you do this once a week, once a month, once a quarter, once a year, it's completely up to you. Does it work for you or does it not? Take what works for you, leave what doesn't, and the rest will come back to you when it's meant to. So when we think about purpose and meaning, if we all just kind of take a mental note or write down somewhere on a scale of 1 to 5, 1, not so happy with how that's working. A 5, I love it. I'm rocking that area. Like I'm doing really good. And there is such a thing as a 5. Those of us that feel like there's always room for growth, yes, the growth is in maintaining the 5, but you can be a 5. So don't hold back. If you're doing a 5, celebrate it. So on purpose and meaning, this is something in the world of education, especially for educators, that being a part of something bigger than yourself, you're like, yep, check that box, part of something bigger than myself. I was put on this planet. My higher purpose is to inspire and influence children. And if I weren't working in my current role, I would find a way to inspire and influence children somehow, some way. That's usually what I hear from most educators. So they're like, oh, really good in purpose and meaning when it comes to my own happiness. But the other piece of this is really being connected to a clear vision and knowing your role. So that clear vision either comes from yourself and defining your future vision and what is your role in making that happen, or the vision within whatever team or school or organization you're working with. So really, really key to be connected to that vision and make sure that everyone's rowing in the same direction and you know what your role is. So there's a famous quote out there that speaks to way back when in the US, we were trying to get a man on the moon, right? And someone walked up to the janitor and said, what's your job here? And he said, to get a man on the moon. And so when we know our role and the vision is clear, no matter what our role is, no matter how big or how small, that it's all pointed to that North Star, it really allows us to feel that sense of higher purpose and being connected to something bigger than ourselves. So it definitely is connected in deep layers there. The next one is positivity. And this, again, is not just about focusing on pleasure and joy, because that's awesome too, right? But sometimes we don't feel like it. So that's when it's about maximizing the positive in speaking, thinking, and feeling. So looking at what am I feeling right now and how do I shift it to be what I need right now, which connects to your self-acceptance and self-trust. Because if I have self-acceptance and I know that I'm enough and I know that I'm worthy of exactly, everything that I desire in life, and I know that I trust myself, and a lot of my work, I connect to Brené Brown and the Anatomy of Trust. She's an amazing thought leader out of the University of Houston. And I love how she breaks down trust and what it means to not only have self-trust, but team trust, but knowing that trust connects into your positivity and in how you're able to maximize your speaking, thinking, and feeling in a positive fashion, not from I'm just the eternal optimist and, I have rose-colored glasses. That's not what it's about. It's about what are you focused on and how are you creating this mental toughness around positivity for yourself so that you're actually choosing what brings you that pleasure and joy. Then the next one is connectedness. And it's positive, trusting relationships. So there's that word trust again. When we think about happiness and we think about our overall well-being and joy, trust is a really critical component to it. And because it connects to our Maslow's hierarchy of safety, right? That's that foundation. And also sense of belonging. So connectedness is really about some of our basic human needs, is to feel safe and to feel that sense of belonging. And that number and depth of relationships really plays into that as well. Some people are more introverted, so they may have fewer, but they may be really deep relationships. Others may have a lot of friends and have the perfect amount of depth with those relationships that makes them happy because they do feel connected. It's not one size fits all. It's does it work for you or does it not? And then engagement. So this is where it's that sense of control and autonomy. Do I have control over my environment and can I do things the way that I see that they need to be done? Can I have that autonomy? And knowing how and when you'll be able to accomplish something. So this is really about owning your power. And are you engaged in what you're doing? Are you engaged in it in a way where you feel empowered, right? You feel that you actually are in that state of flow, that deep, effortless involvement. And I say at least 50% of the time that comes from Roger Hamilton's work, because that's where the magic starts to happen. When you recognize when you're in flow, or as in sports, they say in the zone, or out of the zone or out of flow, start to notice what's working and what's not and adjust accordingly, because it's that 50% mark where you start to feel the difference. And we live in the real world. It's not about being in flow 100% of the time, because sometimes you got to take out the trash. And I don't know anyone that loves taking out the trash. So what is that sense of engagement for you on a regular basis? And just, this is a moment in time. And again, you can do this 1 to 5 scale for yourself at any point in time. And then the next one is sense of progress. Are you feeling like you're accomplishing things, that you're advancing towards a goal or something meaningful? It's not like, oh, I'm advancing towards the goal. It could be of finishing my dinner, finishing my cup of tea, finishing, my cup of tea, right? Is that, am I advancing towards that in a way where it's meaningful? Because finishing my cup of tea may actually feel meaningful if I do it from a mindful place. If it's to actually slow down my world and take 5 to 10 minutes and just savor it, I'm feeling a sense of progress if I actually gave myself the gift of savoring that. So it doesn't have to be that you're advancing towards these big goals, like I'm going to, my BHAG, I'm going to impact 1 million educators on this planet and bring us all together in a conscious educator community. Yes, that's one of them. But it's also that sense of accomplishment of, oh, I took 5 minutes for myself. I'm so proud of myself. And that really helps our sense of overall happiness. And that leads to our personal growth and environmental mastery. So there's a lot of details in there that give you just the nuggets of wisdom to take your power back when it comes to happiness.
And using that as a tool and being able to look at each of those 5 areas, I can see how, if we keep coming back into that it gives us the ability to sort of stop and think, doesn't it? And anybody can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And when we think about and it flows into the other infographic that I'd like to share briefly, is the levels of consciousness. And this is, again, from several different thought leaders who study consciousness. And Roger Hamilton talks about the wealth lighthouse spectrum and how we evolve as entrepreneurs or edupreneurs. And then there's other leadership levels of consciousness and all of that. And again, I love to study other people's work and then synthesize it in a usable format. So this is a way where it's really about, where are you, not only when it comes to happiness, but when it comes to where is your level of consciousness the majority of the time, not 100% of the time, because we all have stuff happen, but it's from the perspective of when you get knocked down, so to speak, how do you come back up? Mm-hmm. And what does that look like? And so I wanted to do this in the form of a tree because we're always growing. We're always evolving. This is about an evolution. It's not about a one size fits all or 100% of the time in any given rung of the tree. There's not rungs on a tree, branches of the tree. But really thinking about this as we actually grow through these levels at any given time. So if I spend the majority of my time, for example, here in a values aligned, inspirational leader, like very trusting, authentic, passionate, interdependent place, if that's really where I spend the majority of my time, and then all of a sudden something happens. For example, I got a really disturbing text a few months ago. I was walking on the beach with a friend. All of a sudden I get this text that threw me down into this fear place. And I immediately am in reaction mode. I'm feeling the high stress, the chaos. I'm having a visceral reaction to it. And it was in that moment where I'm feeling the struggle and the anxiety. And then I immediately go into the orange level where I'm in blame, and I'm wanting to get upset, right? I'm defensive, and it's all about my ego. And I'm in this place, and my friend says, "You'll figure it out." And I'm an ego. So now I want to point at her, and it's like, no, that's not what. But thankfully I had the presence of mind to go, I'm going to need a minute. And so now I'm going to need a minute means I need to go into self-reliance. I need to go into my silo. I need to take my power back. I need to figure out how to get myself recentered. So then my friend was able to reach out and go, "Hey, how you doing?" Now I'm able to hear her from a teamwork perspective, from okay, now what do I want to do with this information? Now my executive functioning has come back in. So this infographic is usable in so many ways where you can actually see that our brains are wired this way, that we actually do this whenever we get triggered by something. but it's also about where are we growing and where are we evolving our own leadership of our own lives as well as within our teams. And usually as a leader, if, for example, I have a lot of principals that I work with of schools that live in this teamwork and growth mindset, and really influential leaders where they're trying to transformationally develop things, and innovative growth culture is kind of where they live. The majority of their staff ends up being in this conforming compliance place where it's like, okay, boss, just tell me what to do. This doesn't serve overall growth. But if you focus as a leader on really growing to your own values aligned place, or ultimately this mentor leadership, where it's about community and collaboration and all of that, then your team kind of naturally grows behind you. And this is about human behavior. This is about our natural evolution as human beings, and knowing that we're all human, and it's okay if you end up in fear or if that's where you are. I remember times in my life when I've actually lived in red and orange the majority of my days. And I felt it, and I felt the heaviness, and I felt all of that. And it wasn't without using the pillars of the science of happiness to articulate what was missing for me, to then be able to evolve through this and grow into the different levels of consciousness.
And I can see this happening in so many different ways. You know, the post comes up on social media and you're instantly down there, and
Yeah.
being able to recognize where you're at, as you've just described, and be able to say, I need a moment. Part of that taking the moment was recognizing that you are enough, that you are not a bad person, that you are, you know, and it's so easy to stay in that, to have that external view and to adopt that in ourselves, isn't it? Rather than being able to go, no, I am enough. I have these skills. Yeah. I have this passion. I have this drive. This is what I'm doing. And so being able to create that self-identity, and being happy with that and happy with who you are. Yeah. It's
Self-acceptance and
yeah.
self-trust. Absolutely. And you know, these are the roadmaps, these are the frameworks. It's about each of us owning who we show up as. And I talk about culture is the collective capacity of who everyone shows up as. There's no culture in an empty building. So when we show up and really are working as individuals to live in alignment with our core values, and we actually operate knowing how to use the science of happiness and the levels of consciousness to adjust along this crazy journey of life, then it's empowering. We actually get to own our life. We get to design it with intention. And like I like to say, you know, we get to create our culture on purpose, and we get to live our life on purpose. And it's really up to each of us to go through that journey in a way that serves us. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. No one's ahead or behind. We're all in this together. We're all students. We're all teachers. And the cool part is we get to do this journey together and revolutionize education by teaching these skills and knowing that you're all unique, amazing humans, and you get to celebrate that brilliance and that uniqueness every day. And I'm so grateful to be a part of it.
Yeah, I would love to see that levels of consciousness and those 5 pillars of happiness in every single school in the world, and to have those things as being the core tools, if you like, of education. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today, Sandy. That was amazing, and particularly the way that you were able to give real examples of how it's able to be used. So I hope that that's of value to people. And if you want to know more, being able to contact Sandy and find out more about what she can do and what she is doing and how to get in touch with her. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you, Kathy. My pleasure.